Welcome back, you filthy exiles. So, off the back of the last video, I noticed there were some comments. Some of the builds I put in were a little less meta, but nonetheless, really interesting league starters and, really fun to play. Made for the 95% of players that want to enjoy the game and have, everyday lives and do stuff and things like that outside of playing video games. But I took some of that feedback on board and I went searching and hunting for a full list of different types of builds that sort of covered different areas. Some of these are really meta, a couple of these in particular really meta. Three of the others though, they just look like fantastic builds. Some are SSF compatible, another being one that you can level up with a Guardian, which I find a really cool skill and super defensive and tanky. And one that I'll feature that I'm just super interested by because it looks really cool with the changes to Hrimsorrow. Now, some of the other concerns that I noticed in the last video are around the unique drop rates. I guess we need to apply a little common sense in this, right? So, if a unique that dropped at a T4 or 5 level before was tuned up so much that it were a headhunter, do you think that that would make that unique a leveling item or not? And that sort of is the common sense that we need to look at. They're changing unique drop rates, but let's be real, it's not going to be crazy changes that's going to make them unobtainable. But anyway, without going into too much detail, just some of the feedback and comments I've been noticing across a large number of videos, and I thought I'd just put my 2 cents worth in here. Anyway, let's get into the video. And by the way, this video is directed at players who are in that 95% bracket, the non-hardcore players, the more so players that are keen to experience league, fun, in inverted commas, emphasis on the fun, because that's why we play video games. And just anybody else who just wants a bit of an easy experience with the game. These league starters are exactly that, league starters, and with investment, they could do anything that you want them to. But they will get you started in league and get you to a pretty moderate point by, maybe the end of the first week or so. Anyway, let's get into another 5 builds to help you league start for 3.19. So the first one that we've got on this list is Telvanni's Cold Spectral Helix Radar. Now, I had a really good look at this build. I was actually doing a lot of research last night. Super interesting. It uses items that I've seen drop in the game that I basically went and just scubbed off as crap, but it actually uses the Whitewind Imperial Scheme, which allows you to abuse the offhand is empty mechanic, where basically if your offhand's empty, you can buff up and get 30% increased spell suppression. Suppress spell damage, and also 200% increased cold damage while your offhand is empty. I found this really, really interesting. Now, the tree that he's provided is League Starter, has a level progression guide. Now, it does use a Hrimsorrow. Now, the change to Hrimsorrow is that it's 100% physical is converted to cold. I believe people in the comments may turn around and say, oh, but that's never going to drop for you. Well, it was a pretty standard drop in the last league. Unless they're going to turn it into a really chase unique, I don't think that's going to be the case. But, we don't know yet, so I'm not going to speak out of lockstep there. But that being said, overall, the build's very well constructed. Damage-wise, it's, 1.13 mil multiplied by the number of Spectral Helixes that you have rolling around you, and that's about 2. And the POB is pretty complete and gives you a hell of a lot of information to be able to work with. Check out his guide. He's a pretty good creator, so make sure you sub to his channel as well. And yeah, so that's number 1 on this list. For build number 2 of this list, I'm actually going to feature Pohx's Righteous Fire Inquisitor. Now, this man loves Righteous Fire so much that he actually built a bloody website for it, which I have a lot of respect for. Now, Righteous Fire, fundamentally how it works is you overcap your fire resistances and you beef up your regeneration. Generally, doing that on the Inquisitor is the easiest pathing to do that with Pious Path and the Ascendancy tree. And then fundamentally, you scale up fire dot or burn damage and basically just ham it with Righteous Fire and just run through maps, endgame, whatnot. Generally with this, you'll run Fire Trap as a single damage multiplier or single target damage multiplier skill. That being said, Pohx has actually got a really good League Starter guide here that really doesn't include any uniques from what I can see. And then further to that, he's actually got the RF changes in the League as well, being League on League for 3.19. It actually has just a lot of videos covering off on all the particulars that you'll need to know around the build. And I think he's also got SSF variations here for RF too. Now, RF you can pretty much take into the full end game. Last league it did get really expensive. It really depends on what the meta is league for league. For the last 2 leagues, RF has been like a hefty meta. Even to the point where I ran my own max block delving version of this build, going back in 3.17. And I loved it. It's seriously one of the best builds that I've played in the game and will always be just one of the best builds in the game. But that being said, I'll provide his link in the description. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you follow his website and wiki as well. He's a really well-informed and documented content around using RF and pretty much covers off on any questions that you might have. Though I'm sure if reached out to him, I'm sure he would assist where possible as well to satiate any further questions. But anyway, this is build number 2. For build number 3, I'm actually going to feature one that looks really cool, and I really sort of want to play it myself during League because it brings me back to an older day of when we used to play the Herald of Agony Jug, except with the Guardian in this circumstance. So, Betta-ah Gaming actually has a really good guide from 3.8 around running a really tanky Herald of Agony Guardian that you can actually apply Arakali's Fang to later in the piece to be able to get spiders, and run a Herald of Agony Spider Guardian build, which is apparently unkillable from what I can see. Or, that's probably an overstatement here. It's not unkillable, but it's definitely hard to kill. From looking at the gameplay on his video, throughout going through all of his guides, there is a huge amount of content to actually consume around how to level the build up, how to basically equip it from the onset to get it working. Now, he does have a League Starter tree that uses basically no uniques. It just uses Replica Advancing Fortress Gut Ripper, which, you know, really isn't that hefty of an item, and everything else is really pretty reasonable that you would expect to get, you know, by level 80 or level, 70 even in the game. That being said, his guides cover all from early mapping all the way through, and all through the acts as well. So there's a tree and a guide and every bit of information that you might need. Now, his video is actually pretty entertaining. I really enjoyed his take on the build. And definitely follow his channel and have a good look through. I've had a look through his comments too. There seems to be a hell of a lot of support for this build. But yeah, definitely give it a shot. It could be really good with the changes to minions as well. Definitely a really cool skill to have a look at, since Herald of Agony hasn't had a lot of love in the past leagues either. But build number 4 is actually a bit of a throwback, going back to I think like 3.16, 3.15, when Shield Crush and SST were really powerful, or Spectral Shield Throw. And this one, funnily enough, is exactly that. So this is British Exiles, the British Exiles Spectral Shield Throw League Starter for 3.19. Now, this man is nearly at 10,000 subs. He's at 9,670. So let's get him to those 10,000 subs on his channel. He deserves it. This build's actually really cool. It hasn't received a lot of love over the last few leagues because everybody's been so sort of into, Righteous Fire and everything else over the last 2 leagues that, they sort of dropped off and thought SST wasn't really a contender. Though this POB shows completely different to that, and as well as the gameplay footage that he's got and the link to his leveling guide as well, which is really succinct and clear. He does have the progress guide and the tree guide as you roll through. Now, this is a max block Gladiator from what I can see, and as well it applies spell suppression. It just looks like a really good build. Now, after being a player that played the shit out of Shield Crush, and in fact, when Shield Crush first came out, I put out a really good Shield Crush guide. Bleed SST is just a really consistent skill. Just has not received any playership over the last few leagues because it's sort of dropped out off the radar. And this is what I mean. There are so many good builds out there that people don't play. Just because they look at the meta build and they're, going seismic traps or something like that. But this build's going to get you through the end game, at least, or it's going to get you to end game. And then with more investment, you're going to be able to progress further through the game and then, you know, you'll be able to do a fair bit of content in that first week. So definitely check out his video. It's really good. As far as the guidance provided in the video, it's fantastic. The damage on the tree just caps at nearly $1 million, nearly not, well, 941,000 bleed dot, which is pretty good considering it's a league starter. And the gearing on it's very reasonable as well. So I think, you know, we've got a couple of things like Duresso's Courage, you know, the was a Barq round shield, Barracu round shield, and then, you know, Reslytha's Coil. And these things will drop as you play, otherwise they won't be too expensive, because let's be real, melee characters are really cheap. Until GGG fixes melee, melee is a cheap option for a league start, and this build achieves and proves exactly that this is something that you can play that's going to work and get you through to that end game. And then you can make a call if you want to roll a second character or beef this character up more with, you know, your drops and investment into it so far, then that's entirely up to you. But definitely check this build out, and this is number 4 on my list. Okay, the final build on this list is actually going to be one that got pretty heavily featured over the last 2 leagues and was a bit of a sleeper skill going back, like, I think, like 1 or 2 leagues ago. And it's actually Goratha's Spark Inquisitor. Now, this is a really interesting skill because Spark is just like, you get it straight away as you sort of start the game. You don't think too much about it. But it's an incredibly detailed build. Did quite well in the last, I think, league or 2 leagues. It's been featured on a lot of curations as well in the past. This is his update for 3.19. Now, the one thing I will say is if you're going to run this build, make sure that you pull the tree down, but when you do, it is not quite fully up to date. You do need to watch his video. You do need to sort of pay attention to what's going on in the build and the changes that apply in 3.19. In particular, things like reservation have a bit of an impact on the build, but nothing that you can't work around. Now, there are changes to things like Defiance Banner that changes, you know, damage, your damage profile or defense layering that you'll need to be mindful of. But as an overall, as somebody who also plays Inquisitors, in particular Leadership Price, self-cast Inquisitors, I can tell you now and with confidence, this build is well put together and, you know, it's tried and true and tested league on league. So yeah, definitely just a really meta skill that you can sort of pick up, play, follow Goratha's channel, follow his build guides. They're quite good. In particular, this one on Spark is just a reliable build that's going to work for you. And yeah, that's the last build on this list. Okay, so hopefully this list, and this will be the final list that I put out for 3.19, helps you sort of pick out a build and what you want to play. Now, the one thing I will say is, you know, I think people have a common misconception that you're going to play a league starter build and it's going to get you to Maven on day 1. That's just not a thing. So when you sort of get into the game, you know, take your time, learn the mechanics. You will have to adjust league starters for different sort of things that you're going to run into or bottlenecks within builds. It's part of playing PoE. So, you know, a lot of these guides, including these and any other guides, are simply just that. They're a guide. They're a guide to help you get to an endpoint. But, you know, don't hang shit on the creators. Don't hang shit on anything else. Just try and understand and do the research and get your head around the build and understand what's going wrong. It could be a defense layer that's not working. Maybe you're not LE capped. You've got a mana problem, so you need to rework the tree, pick up some mana spend reduction points or cost reduction points, and or run clarity and drop off one aura and, you know, switch out another aura. Maybe you don't have enough evasion. Maybe you don't have enough armor. You're not running Tempest Shield, so you're not blocking properly. There's a whole, so maybe you have elemental ailments that are hurting you more than others, and you need to run like Soul of Aberrath on your Pantheon to be able to counter that. Often there's things just in the build that you're running that, you know, we as build creators, you know, you can't come up with every possible solution to what people will run into or things that they do and sort of counter what they do and don't understand. You can only sort of provide a skeleton and then people have to add on their take onto that build. But anyway, hopefully these builds get you over the line or give you some more ideas as to what to play for the 3.19 league. We have a few days before league starts, so I thought I'd get this video out just to give an ample slew of options to everybody who's keen to get into it and smash through the league. I'll be playing Crackling Lance, or the Crackling Lance league starter that I put up a video for. But anyway, until next time, like and sub to the channel if you like these types of videos, and have a good one and enjoy the 3.19 league.